Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
The next guest, so I'm excited to welcome to the program, author Barbara Taylor. Barbara, thanks for calling.
Hello.
And how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much. I love this beautiful city.
You do, and it's interesting. I'm looking at your background of the Poconos and stuff like that. But let's go right into quickly about the Miami Book Fair. Is this the first time you've been there?
This is my first time at the book fair and my first time in Miami. And it's snowing in Pennsylvania, so I'm happy to be here.
Oh, it's snowing where you're at, not in Pittsburgh yet. I'm looking outside right now at my window, and it's cold and rainy. Don't tell me snow's coming tomorrow for me. That's not a good forecast.
Then I won't tell you. I won't tell you.
Snow's already arrived
in Minnesota. Did you fly before 70 degrees, Barbara?
I flew out. It was in the 30s yesterday, and it was when I was leaving Pennsylvania, and it was in the 70s here when I arrived.
It was the 70s in Pittsburgh all day yesterday. This is not good news.
Oh my
Barbara.
gosh! Well, it was cold where I was. It may have warmed up during the day. I'm not sure.
All right, so let's talk about your background, Barbara. Tell us a little bit about your background, then we'll get in your book.
Well, I'm a high school English teacher, and I'm also an author. I wrote 2 novels, Sing in the Morning, Cry at Night, and the sequel, which just came out, All Waiting is Long.
Mm-hmm. All right. And tell me why teaching led to writing books, or did it go the other way around?
You know what? I always enjoyed writing, but I sort of did it in private or with my students. I never thought of it as a career. And when I hit my 40s, I decided to go back to school for my MFA at Wilkes University. And that just one thing led to another, and eventually publication. But I'm still teaching and I'm writing, and I love both of them.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So, just curious. When you published your first book, did that, how did that feel, and did it change, for your next book? Did it change anything of like how you went about either writing it or publishing it?
Well, interestingly, the first book was rejected by about 20 publishers before it actually got published. So I had put it in a drawer, and I started working on the next one. So by the time the first book, Sing in the Morning, was picked up for publication, I already had the first draft of the next one completed. So I was actually pretty relieved about that because I didn't have to stare at the blank page. I knew where I was going. So it was really exciting, absolutely. But then I also just jumped right back into that second one so that I could get that out as soon as possible.
Awesome.
Interesting. And so in that journey, how did it keep you going to say, especially as a teacher, I'm not getting published? What's going on here? You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just about the writing, or at least it was, believe it or not. I wrote that first book. It didn't go anyplace. I put it in a drawer, and I started the next one. And it just never occurred to me that I should stop. I think in the back of my mind, I hoped at some point I would get published. But in the meantime, writing was just such a passion for me. It really sort of woke something up in me at that point that I just kept going with it. I wasn't, the publication was secondary. And don't take me wrong, I'm absolutely thrilled and grateful for all of it, but that's not what was driving me. So, which is probably good because then it didn't influence my stories either. I wasn't writing for a particular, commercial purposes or something like that.
Gotcha. I guess I'm curious is to keep going into, despite being rejected by those publishers and then finally getting it published, what was the first experience you had where you learned that language was power and that your words were something that you had to put on a page and you had to put out there for the world to read?
Oh, that's interesting. When I was a little girl, I would write poems, and my minister at church, the church I used to go to, would always put them in the bulletin. And so even when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, I was getting published because I'm sure they just thought the poetry was cute at that age. But I remember, receiving compliments and knowing people were reading my words. And, so I have that memory from when I was very young.
Gotcha. Cool.
All right. So, what panels are you going to be on at the festival, at the fair? Tell us about some of the
I'm
panels.
on a panel today with Kaylie Jones Books at 12:30. So I'm there with J. Patrick Redmond, another one of Kaylie's authors, and we're going to be talking, Kaylie is the moderator, and we're going to be talking a lot about social issues, about coming out, about the current political climate, about eugenics in the United States. My second book, when I was researching my second book, I needed to know, it takes place in the 30s, and I needed to know how someone would give birth in a hospital, because it opens at a Good Shepherd Infant Asylum for girls who are pregnant and unmarried. And as I was doing the research, I kept coming across medical books published by the American Eugenics Society. And after I did some research, I realized that in the 30s and before, we were really prominent in research for creating a better race. You know, we always talk about Hitler and what he and his men were doing, and they were piggybacking off of a lot of our research. So we were sterilizing women without their permission. We had ministers preaching from the pulpit about keeping the white bloodlines pure. We had what were called the fittest family contest, where at the country fairs, white families would compete for the title of best family. So all of those social issues are in the book, and sadly, I think in the current political climate, they're still relevant today.
Do you think that social media today has benefited or been a negative connotation towards social issues?
Well, you know, it's funny because I think it gives everyone a voice and a platform to certainly give their opinion. By the same token, as a teacher, I'm always talking to my students about the fact that, you know, I think it was yesterday in the Washington Post, there was an article about a man who actually writes fake news for a living, and he was bragging about how many times his articles were picked up by Trump and Pence and their people, and I'm sure by the other side as well, but that's what he was talking about. So I think it's really detrimental if we don't triple check before we post things, because people believe what they read on the internet without thinking.
And what's really scary is the fact that could have had something to do with the election. It could have been a very small amount of why the election was the way it was on both sides of the fake news. But how can you trust your news? And I'm glad you brought that up. I saw that last night on CNN, and I almost dropped. I said, "Oh my gosh!" And then, there were conservative Republicans that jumped on it, and then there also were times where other people and also people swayed from each political genre, meaning not journalists but other people, and that's the people who vote, meaning the masses.
Absolutely. So, my feeling is I teach ninth graders. They're going to be voting in the next election, so I am just trying to teach them to be discerning about their news. We're looking at which sources are reliable, which sources are slanted. I don't know if it'll help, but that's where I'm attacking the problem.
All right, Barbara, where's the best place we can purchase your book and learn more about your books and learn more about you? Where can we go?
Oh, you're wonderful. You can certainly purchase them on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookstores around the country. I also have a website, which is barbarajtaylor.com, and you can find out all about my books and the family stories that inspired my writing and, reviews and all of that. Lots of information and great pictures from the early 1900s in Scranton and from the 1930s.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks for calling. Enjoy the festival and take care.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks. I really enjoyed it. Yes, thanks. Bye-bye. You're listening to Author's Corner, powered by Life Improvement Radio, live from the Miami Book Fair. And we'll be back in a couple minutes, about noon, to go back live. Take care, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.